once, that's fine too.
Hey guys, welcome. Thanks for joining me here. You can see behind me, I'm in the Infiniverse, but I appreciate both of you joining. This is be a little bit different. We usually do a one-on-one interviews. Today is going to be a little bit of a panel and a little bit of a back and forth question and answer. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves to the audience. Rahul, you want to go first?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jay, for having us for this discussion today. My name is Rahul. I work for Harbinger Group. Harbinger Group is a software engineering firm, and we have been in the business for the last 3 decades, and we work very closely with EdTech companies and helping them develop the next-gen cutting-edge software products and digital learning solutions. So yeah, here we are, looking forward to this conversation. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. And then we have Taki. You were on last week's episode, but I want to have you reintroduce for the people watching today.
Thank you, Jay. Happy to be here. Yes, Taki here from LastLink. So with LastLink, we do 2 things. We produce virtual events, and we also build technology. So you can say LastLink is a production and technology company. So we focus fully on remote work and virtual events, everything that has to do with virtual life, basically.
Yep. And then in addition to that, we last week's episode was on Meet on Bubble, and if you haven't watched it, it's the bridge between the classroom in Web 2 and the labs in Web 3. So please take a look at that, and we might talk a little bit about that today. Rahul is working closely with virtual reality also to bridge that gap to bring APIs into the LMSs. They are looking at how to ensure that middleware can connect to the laboratories and the experiences that teachers are assigning, and making sure that the students receive the grade for their activity. So a couple of things. Well, Rahul, you have a lot of questions, and I think your questions back and forth will help sort of fuel this interview. So why don't you start with some of yours?
Sure, absolutely, Jay. And it's definitely, I think, one of the important aspects that we wanted to touch upon today is around this entire remote thing, whether it's remote working, remote learning, remote education, remote facilitation, those kind of things. And then there's this buzzword around metaverse. So my questions primarily are targeted towards that how is metaverse going to play a role? So my first question to begin with is, from a layman's perspective, if we were to explain someone that what metaverse actually is, how would you define that?
Well, what's ironic about your question is here we are having a live interview in the metaverse, in Zoom in the metaverse. So as this is in front of an audience of avatars. So that's exciting and interesting. The metaverse. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, for bringing attention to it. It was created a long time ago in virtual reality as people began connecting worlds. So when you take your virtual reality experience in one app and you connect it to your virtual reality experience in another, you've just crossed worlds, and you have crossed those barriers, and the metaverse had started a long time ago in virtual reality in 3D. But now we have a lot of attention to it, a lot of buzz. But I think we've got to be careful, like how we use that word. I think all of the people out here have heard it way more than they wanted to hear it over the last 3 months. But then again, I also think that has brought attention to what we are doing in this space from an education standpoint, from a futurist standpoint, and what things socially will change in the future. So yeah, it's exciting to watch all of the changes take place.
Thank you so much, Jay. And Taki, what's your take on metaverse?
Well, I think automatically when I hear the metaverse, we connect to the VR environment right away. And I think, at least to me personally, there are two aspects to it. One is you actually, being in a VR experience to experience the metaverse, just like Jay. Um, he loves being in the metaverse with VR. But to me, metaverse could also be 2D. To me, it's more about the actual experience, how you could be in a different world than the actual physical world that we're in, and just be able to actually connect with people, whether for education, for just networking, for the different things. And I think technology is just taking it to the next level, um, and especially VR. But we're yet to actually see simpler hardware that people could use every day, that will make that a reality and everybody would use it. So that's at least my stand on it.
And when you say sorry, Raul, Taki, when you say simpler hardware, tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that.
Two things I can think of, Jay, that people use today: just simple glasses or contacts. These are the two that people use every day, and I feel we're gonna get there at some point where it's just part of your life. Like wearing those headsets is amazing. It's the first step, and we're advancing in that too. But we need those lighter hardware.
Yeah, no, I agree. Right now, everybody's sitting here in this event with the Quest 2 on, watching us on a giant screen. So I can't wait until we have lighter hardware. I always picture a future where, in Star Trek, when I was a kid, it's inspired me to do a lot of things. But Geordi had those really light visors on. Obviously he couldn't see, and those were infrared. But those visors, maybe one day. Over to you, Raul. Next question.
So, Jay, you mentioned that metaverse has been there for quite some time, and because of Facebook, it kind of caught the attention to a certain extent. And of course, there are other companies as well. So is this another buzzword that is going to, create some ripples for some time and just fade away, or is this thing for real? What's your point?
I think there's two dimensions to your question. One, is it a buzzword? Yeah, it's a buzzword right now, and it's been going crazy because it's new, and it's letting people know that there's this new type of live 3D internet, if you will. That's the way I see that. And so it is here. Do I think that virtual reality and this 3D internet's going away? Absolutely not. And in fact, if you think it's going to go away, you're going to be one of those people in 10 years that looks back and thought to yourself, wow, how could I have thought that was a fad? This is changing fundamentally how people explore subject matter, which is why VEDX is in this, content for education. Fundamentally, it's changing social interaction. I mean, it's following the same patterns as when the internet emerged early on. So I don't think it's going anywhere. It's just the point being that now, for the very first time, with standalone headsets, frame rates, battery life, and Wi-Fi speeds, it's all converged to actually become a reality. I mean, this whole virtual reality, it's been around, since the first headset that was really giant, awkward, and was tethered to 4 things, right, in the 80s. Yeah, I mean, but now, right now, we are on the precipice of it becoming mass and scaled. And I can't wait for the next 5 years to watch all of it and be a part of all of it.
That's a very interesting perspective, and yep, we'll note the date today, and we'll talk again after 5 years in terms of how metaverse has shaped up things. But yes, I agree with you that there's some substance to behind this entire buzzword thing. Taki, what's your opinion on it?
Well, one, it is a buzzword. So I agree with Jay and both of you. And metaverse has been there for a while, just how we look at it. And then I think the term, so the technology has always been there. Okay, I mean, has been there for a while, but the metaverse, the term is the buzz today. And at least me personally, how I see it, or like, I think at least how people see it, it's more about connecting people, like how can I go to this metaverse, to this new environment virtually, connect with people, walk around, go to, I don't know, go sit at coffee shops. But I see less about the value of education, for example, And so when you say the word metaverse, you don't automatically think of education, do you? I mean, now that I'm asking you both, like, do you connect these two?
No, and you've got a good point.
Exactly. So it is a buzz for the networking, that experience, the hype, but there's so much into it when it comes to value, especially for education. Like, I've experienced VR, I would say more than 7-8 years ago. I went inside a human body and I was like amazed. I'm like, where was this in my biology class?
Yeah.
I'd have learned everything literally. And so it is a buzz, but it's there to stay. Okay, absolutely. But there are two sides into this.
Mm-hmm.
For the education, it is there to stay for sure. Okay, for the networking aspects, for us, like living in the virtual metaverse, that will connect mostly on the hardware, on the technology. Can we have something that we could use, for a longer period of hours? Because if it's education, 30 minutes, 40 minutes a day, we'll get the job done. But for you to actually have that, feeling of you just spending all your time on VR, it's going to depend on the technology.
Yeah, and Taki, that's a great point on the technology, and we are where we are with Chromebooks and schools having carts and the technology they've installed so far for learning. And with virtual reality and the metaverse, this is adding a component. It's adding a dimension to their learning. So bringing in technology that they're going to alter in between. So, I mean, for instance, Taki, that Meet on Bubble interview we did last week, it was great to see how assets were pinned, deep link labs were pinned inside the virtual classroom, so that a student can be in the two-dimensional screen, working with their classmates and their teacher, and then jump into that virtual reality lab, do that, and come back out to that two-dimensional screen, continue to work. So it's really about that integration of technology and how that's going to affect learning. So yeah, thanks for that.
Absolutely.
That's an interesting viewpoint, Taki. And coming back to your answer in terms of the way you described the use case of metaverse in education space and the use case of metaverse in the way we live, we network, we shop, we travel, those kind of things. Very interesting. So we'll pick up on the education space, and for obvious reasons, because the panel today is heavily tilted towards education. And Jay spoke about some of those aspects in terms of the use cases and all. If you don't mind, could you please tell us a little bit more in detail in terms of how Bubble.io as a platform is developed currently, or you have a vision to develop it so that it could be that possible bridge or that platform to deploy metaverse type of solution in the education space?
Absolutely. But a small correction, Rahul, Bubble.io is a different company, is a no-code company.
Yeah, Meet on Bubble. Meet on Bubble.
We're
Meet on
Bubble.com. It's okay.
Sorry for the correct.
Yeah.
Free advertisement for Bubble.io. And again, could you actually Now that we actually joked about this, I missed the question. Just
What? One more time,
Yeah.
Raul. What? Mhm.
Yeah, so basically the question is, and I think in similar lines, for example, the reason why bubble.io came into my mind was, it's the low code, no code platform, and, it's easy to deploy and get it up and running quickly. So similarly, your platform, bubble.com, how is it structured to help educational institutions set up a metaverse ecosystem quickly?
so Meet on Bubble today is structured in a way where you're literally building a building, if I can say that. Like, you're creating a building from scratch. Like, you can have a lobby, you can have multiple rooms. So we give you that flexibility to build your own building, and we give you all the tools to use it however you want. So it is a metaverse, but it's a 3D. Everything that you can do today on VR, you can do on Meet on Bubble, but without the actual experience of the VR. We can't have that. But what we can do also, the way we structured Meet on Bubble, is we can just create some of these rooms in a VR environment, because it is a building, just like you would have, a building in a real life where you can have, chairs, seats, and you can have also another room in the same building where you have your VR sets. So depending on where you go, you'll have, those different experiences. And this is exactly what we're doing today. You go to a room that is 2D, you'll experience the 2D, but now I actually have a classroom where I need to use my Quest sets. We'll go to the VR room, which you can do that too.
And Raul, if you want to know more about that, you can also jump in the Infiniverse, and there is now a store over on in the education district that is Meet on Bubble. So you could come in and experience three-dimensional storefront and learn a little bit more about Meet on Bubble.
Absolutely, Jay. Thank you. Thank you very much for that information. And thank you, Taki, for that answer. Jay, that brings us to one interesting aspect. I mean, you're one of the pioneers for VR in the education space at a school level, at a mass scale. So I'm sure one of the questions or the challenges that might have come up while implementing VR at scale would have been the cost of the hardware.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, so is something like the Bubble platform, which Taki spoke about, could that be a possible answer to, or a possible solution to that challenge?
I think that's a two-part question. I think that any school that can invest in a laptop can invest in a pair of VR goggles. The Quest 2 headset at its base price is $299. Obviously, you have to add your import taxes depending on what country you're in. And by the way, free plug for Amazon. It's the quickest and easiest way to get the Quest 2 headset to your doorway everywhere in the world. But my point being is that the $299 is actually very affordable. A biology textbook is $299, but a Quest 2 headset gives you access to the world of emerging content in education, from biology labs to history lessons to literature to social space to connecting with professors and university recruiters. I mean, the amount of that investment, biology textbook, Quest 2 headset, when you put those side by side and look at the ROI, it's really a no-brainer at this point, right? Like, you've just got to make the investment. And for multi-year contracts, what we've done with schools is said, look, if you sign this multi-year contract with us, we can then replace that hardware, much like the Dell model, right? You pay a little bit more over the 2 years, and then that hardware is replaced, because we all know hardware gets replaced, but the software is not going anywhere. So the apps that we have on the inside will be adaptable to the new hardware on the outside after that 2-year multi-year contract. So that's been one of the ways we've come over the barrier. Obviously, the other is discussing that ROI, that return on investment for students. I mean, this opens up a new dimension, literally a new dimension. Long-term memory goes up by 90% in some research studies, showing that the engagement, the activation of the medulla with the goggles on changes how you take in that content from the virtual reality experience. So I think that schools that want to think about their outcomes and their engagement with their students should tie this in to their 5-year plan today. Now, that 5-year plan, this brings me back to you, Raul. 5-year plan is not just buying goggles, right? That's why you've got to think about this in a 5-year capacity. It's about getting a virtual reality class pack to your school, starting and getting that going, integrating with your LMS, SIS. And Raul, I'm going to turn it back around on you for a minute. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in the new metaverse space. You've had these great questions, but I want to know, as Harbinger, what's happening.
Yeah, thank you, Jay, for asking that question. In fact, we had been doing some work in the VR space, the 3D modeling space. So, building the assets, building the environment. And then one of the things that we worked upon was the integration of the VR applications into the conventional and traditional digital learning ecosystem. For example, if students are consuming VR-based content, then we want to measure the outcomes of that VR-based content. And then how do we do that? So how do we create a wrapper around a VR application so that we can track those activities, capture those results and outcomes, and send it across to a Canvas LMS or a Blackboard LMS or a Moodle LMS. And at the end of the day, those analytics that come out should be comprehensive enough to help the educators understand that, how the students are faring on the VR-based applications. So those are some of the things that we are, we are doing and we would continue like to doing is, and of course, integration of various applications seamlessly, making them talk to each other and building the basic blocks, whether it's 3D modeling or the VR assets and the instructional design pedagogy behind the VR, those kind of things we continue to do.
Great. Yeah. And can you tell me, just as far as your opinion, what's your opinion on the metaverse and where it's at, and what you've decided to pitch your 5-year strategy on?
Right. So, for example, there are a few areas wherein this thing is really going to work. For example, education. Definitely in the education space, it has already been implemented in some form or the other, and it will continue to grow. The second one is in the healthcare space. I see a lot of benefit in the healthcare space, remote health monitoring and telehealth and those kind of things, elderly care, all those things. The third thing is even in the fintech domain, contactless banking and all those things. Of course, in the US or in the Western part of the world, a lot of this is already contactless, but a very major portion of the banking system or the financial tech portion is still very high touch business. And that's changing rapidly. So the metaverse could play a role there as well in the fintech system. Where it might not work, and this is putting my neck out today, is saying that hospitality space, no. Travel, no. Retail, no. I don't think those are things which people will still like to do in person. I mean, in pandemic days, people haven't stopped traveling, whether it's be domestic or international. And at the first moment you want to go out and in one of your favorite restaurants and have that dine-in experience rather than takeaway experience or dine-out experience. So just to summarize, I think education, healthcare, finance, banking to a certain extent, there's a good role for metaverse to happen there. And then where it might not happen is retail, travel, hospitality. Then some are the other, there could be some others like, heavy machinery, and those kind of things where there's a high risk involved.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and watch whether they agree to, switch on the metaverse side of things, or they still prefer to test it out in the actual field and, see the result.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I think with the couple things on there, I think with the heavy machinery, the training part, the education training for those high risk categories can reduce injury. When you're doing the virtual reality training on the cranes and the large equipment. I think the retail actually, I think it will take off. And in fact, it's crazy. There's one of our partners in Brazil is creating a store that is combining augmented reality and virtual reality in the same type of app, and you can switch back and forth, and then you can actually order directly online with the VR store. So super interesting. I can't wait to see where that goes. And so I think it's going to be involved in every aspect of our future, because it just like the internet was. When somebody heard email in 1990, like why would I want an electronic mail when I can get regular mail? It's like, conceptually, it's just got to settle in that now you can go to this alternate space with your friends and your coworkers and experience things that you didn't have an access to before. So it's building dimensions. Anyway, I think we're just about out of time today, but guys, this was cool. Instead of a one-way directed panel, I like having kind of the three-way discussion topics. But thank you for joining us here in episode 12. Every 2 weeks, you can join us here in the Infiniverse. Come to this seminar room. Behind me is the doorway to the storefront where this will perpetually sit for people to listen again with their friends. So you guys should come check it out too. And if you have an inquiry for Meet on Bubble, you can go check it out at their storefront, put that inquiry in. Harbinger, you can go look in their room. I don't have a storefront for them yet, but I definitely have a room set up. And thank you, Raul, for this time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jay, for having me on this conversation. And thank you, Taki. Nice talking to you.
Pleasure.
All right, guys. Take care and keep roaming the Infiniverse, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks.